an investor pitch. And I remember talking to these people saying, I really don't care about money. I just want this business to live on and change a lot of lives. It's that 24, 25-year-old mentality. Like you're just trying to be this good person, right? You're not thinking of the people you can employ, what you can do with the money, how businesses really work, what investors really need to hear. And so you're saying all the wrong stuff. And it's because you don't even know where you're going or what you want to accomplish yet. And once you're able to connect all those dots and realize like, wow, I've said the wrong thing here. Well, I'll never do that again. Wow, I went over here and did that. I'll never do that again. And so you start to dissect all your mistakes. And and this is the power of writing, when you start to evaluate where you come from, where you're at now and where you're going, you start to analyze all the breadcrumbs of where you went right and where you went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And those forks in the road that you didn't take or you didn't go the right path, you start to see that, plain as day. And I think that once you see those mistakes, and you might have realized it in your book, that once you're able to see where you made the mistakes, you just kind of highlight it, take note in your brain and just say, okay, that taught me something. And now I'm going to be a better person, a better entrepreneur, a better leader, a better husband, whatever it is going forward.
Yeah. I coach a lot of business, entrepreneurs and people starting up, and I won't coach somebody unless they have a business plan, because it tells me they don't have that roadmap to where they're going, right? They're center
Good
field.
point.
And a book is a lot like that, right? Because as you just described, it might show who you truly are and where you're going on that path. And, people often fail you because they don't know that, they're just shooting for whatever they're hearing out in the open air, somebody else's dreams and vision, but what's yours?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure you see that a lot when you're interviewing people for their books, and you're like, wow, you really went off in left field there when I know that you're this person.
Right. It's crazy. I mean, maybe because I get to hang around people like you and super successful entrepreneurs and get to hear their stories and how they communicate. You start to see people who are somewhat successful, but they're not clear. And clarity makes you dangerous.
Hmm.
So, like, if people have money, but they're not clear, they will start making mistakes. They don't know who to trust. They don't know where they're going. They don't know, like, what their true identity is. And so those people who are dead set, know who they are, know where they're going. These people, even if they don't have a lot of money, will become successful because then you know what to say yes to and what you were going to say no to. In your book, you talk about, and this is a story I bring up a lot, Jim. I don't know if you've ever heard me say this, or I do talk about this with people.
Yeah.
You at In-N-Out Burger made a decision to leave there and go to a resort, right? I think you were saying you were working on a mountain,
Yeah.
and was like a guard on a mountain
Well,
for like skiing, ski patrol, and all that?
well, I was a sharpshooter where you take photos at the ski resort. I went from a
Yeah,
six-figure
ski
income
resort.
to working commission, only taking
15 bucks an
pictures.
hour or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I tell stories. I'm like, yeah, he left it and went to work at a ski resort. And I didn't know exactly what it was. But so I tell this story. I'm like, why would anybody do that? And it's because he knew that in order for him to like live his true purpose, he had to maybe take away that safety net and go somewhere new to find out more about himself. And so, like, you do have to evaluate all of that. And the people who are just, I don't know where I'm going, and they just keep staying the path, time becomes your enemy. But if you use it to your advantage and start making these big moves, you find out more about yourself and you find out more skill sets. And
Yeah.
that makes you more valuable. And you may not even be able to realize how powerful that story is right then and there. But 5, 10, 15 years later, you may be able to connect with someone who is doing really well in a corporate job and they just not ready to leave. And you tell them that story, it gives them the permission to go and say yes to that new career, whatever income level it is, and find out more about themselves. And the truth of who you are is like the ultimate adventure. So I'm an adventure seeker. You are too. I know that.
Never
Guys, I don't
stop.
know if you do. All right. So people always ask me, like, oh, should I write a book? I haven't lived a lot, crazy stories and all that. I think you even came to me and you're like, I don't know if this book's gonna be interesting. I'm like, well, tell me some stories. Baja Racer, hanging out with Arnold Palmer, like amazing stories. And so I'm an adventure seeker like you. And I think that finding the truth and going through life and just picking up these little new tools and figuring out how to master them. That's the ultimate adventure. And I think that's the game of entrepreneurship. I think that's why I'm in love with it so much, because it's not just one business, it's just the game of business.
Yeah, I got a question about your clients, but I'm going to real quick sidebar on this because you brought it up. When I left that comfortable job at In-N-Out Burger, and if you know the story, my family was intertwined. My brother was the president. It was a tough decision. And at 28, I thought I had the world in my hands, making a six-figure income, and I stepped away. And for anybody out there that's in your mid 20s and you just feel like, hey, if you make the wrong move, life is over. Let me tell you, I made that move. Made literally, it was commission only taking photos on the mountain, so it was less than $15. It was like whatever I could make for the day, right?
Oh my God.
But when I look back now at 54, the best years of my life were since I left that job. So life doesn't end when you switch careers. Matter of fact, in my mid 50s right now, I'm more excited about the future than I think I've ever been.
Amazing.
So don't hesitate to make a pivot and turn regardless of your age, even if you're in your 60s or 70s. Be happy with where you're going. And Mike, that's kind of the line of discussion I want to go with you. You've interviewed, or you've as you suggested, put out over 250 plus books. You've heard some stories. What are some of the common themes? Because we both know that money doesn't buy happiness.
Doesn't.
But if you don't have money, sometimes money can change your life to bring you in a different zone. So there's two sides of that fence. But what are some of the comparisons that you've seen in all your interviews and clients?
Man, it's the little stories, the ones that you may not see as like instrumental, but it's the little stories that affect all of these people's lives. One of my big clients he's an individual has changed my life. His name is Mark Evans DM.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a part of his group, and he sent me a lot of clients. He's opened me up to a whole new world, private jets and yachts and all this stuff. And so one of the stories he tells in his book is whenever his grandmother died, and he was very close with his grandmother. And the moment whenever she died, he made a decision that he is not going to live life as if it's everlasting and eternal. He is going to live life as if it's the last day ever, because his grandmother had such an impact, and realized that time is so short. That one decision caused him to become this, he calls it magician versus the mule. It caused him to start thinking, man, even though I'm successful with this one business, I'm burning up time. I'm missing time with my wife. I'm not doing certain things. I have to become someone else. And it's just these little things that happen that everybody experiences, but he just used it in a way that propelled him so much further than before. There's another story with Nick Santanastasso, a great speaker, an incredible individual who was born with a bad set of cards. I mean, no legs, half of an arm. He told me a story in an interview, and here I am, just, this guy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, interviewing some of these high level people. He told me a story about when he was 13 or 14 years old. He was going to school one day and they wouldn't allow him to wrestle. Okay. So they think he's disabled because he's unable to do certain things that other wrestlers are doing. And the reason why is because every time they would touch his arm only had skin to bone. There was no muscle. And so it was so painful that they wouldn't allow him, and he couldn't even do it. So at 13 or 14 years old, he left school one day, went to the doctor and said, I need to cut this arm off so I could wrestle. Figure out a way how to cut the rest of my arm off because I need to wrestle. And so you hear that story and you realize this person made a decision at 13 or 14 to cut a limb off.
Wow.
And so he could do something like wrestle, which wrestling to me was, you could just take it for granted. Oh, I could become a wrestler or play hockey or whatever. He wanted something so badly that he was willing to give up something. And that's probably the biggest takeaway from all these people. They all sacrificed something, but they all got very specific on what they wanted to accomplish. And that could be make X amount of dollars. It could be live this type of lifestyle. It could be, I want to wrestle. I want to do X, Y, and Z, you name it. The people who got very specific on accomplishing a goal and became singular focused on that goal are the ones who accomplish great things. So I've realized that when I become distracted or I have a lot of things in front of me, I have to blind myself from all of that and stay very clear on one to get to that goal, and then maybe I can start to shift over into a different sector, a different idea. So the people who do the greatest, let's say, is clarity, but they all take a story that's so insignificant and then amplify it in their life and then use it as fuel to become a better version.
What's interesting as you're talking and thinking about those 250 plus books that you've helped push out in the marketplace, it's a lot of people. And I follow you on social media and your other platforms and Mike's Inner Circle, and you have the same level of enthusiasm for every single person in your group, every single person you've worked with. Mark Evans, he's got 712,000 followers on his Instagram. I mean, I know who Mark is, and he's an influencer, but it doesn't matter to you whether that's Mark or Nick or somebody else. You give everybody the same level of enthusiasm. And I think in my mind, and reaffirm this if it's true, I think because you've had the ability to learn each person's story and you feel equally passionate about their history and what they're doing and where they're going through their book. And the point of bringing this out is that everyday people don't think they have a story. And they
Mm-hmm.
do, don't they?
Absolutely. It's crazy to even think that your life is insignificant, right? You may realize that it might not be as interesting as you want, but there's something that you learned along the way that could help someone that was in your situation. And that could be an addiction. I mean, we work with a lot of people who beat addiction and then become multimillionaires,
Mm-hmm.
or go to federal prison, get out, become multimillionaires. All these people have something that they've learned that could help someone else. There is this philosophy that once you make it to a certain level, it's your God-given duty or responsibility to turn around and reach down and try to pull someone up. And so, Ty Lopez has a philosophy that 33% of the people around you should be people that you can help. 33% of the people should be right where you're at right now. And 33% of the people in your circle should be, somewhere that you want to be. And you talk about how, regardless of what their financial situation is, some people were met with a billionaire. So you realize that all these people have interesting stories, they all have interesting lessons, but they're all just regular people. And
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing special about these individuals except for how they thought about certain aspects of their life, and they used it not only to their advantage but to be of value to other individuals. So there's a great phrase from Jim Rohn, and it's be of service to the many, for service to the many leads to greatness. So everybody I really look up to, or even people I work with on a day-to-day basis that are just not known to the world, they are thinking, how could I be of value or of service to the many? And it could just be one person, it could be 1,000, it could be millions. As long as you put yourself in a situation where you're like, okay, whatever I learned, I guarantee I can help someone else. Let me stop thinking about, is it interesting enough or cool enough or exciting enough, and just try to be of value.
Mm.
And the moment you put yourself there, now you could get specific on, just worrying about getting them to the next level. And you become more valuable as you do so, which makes you more interesting. And so it's crazy how the paradigm of, once you start worrying about being more interested in other people makes you more interesting. Wow, the world opens up for you. And so your ability to articulate your life changes. It becomes easier to talk about. You actually want to get on podcasts and share it. You want to write about it. You want to get on videos and share it. And so it becomes easier the more you realize that everything you go through could be valuable to someone else, whether it's now or later. And so I always say, like, once you evaluate your book, maybe you're not living as interesting life as you want. Well, guess what? Now you have the ability to change all that. Use your book, use your story to propel yourself to the next chapter and make that more exciting. And guess what you do then? You document that. So
Mm-hmm.
every adventure, every misstep, every overcoming, use that as some way to help the world. And man, the attention that you'll get from that, or the ability to, have someone say, hey, Jim, when I read his book, holy smokes, he got me to see something differently. So it could be just that easy.
No, it's a great point. I've got a lot of books around my house, and my theory is if I read a book and I can get one tidbit out of it, it was worth the read, right? So for 10, $15 for that book, if there's one sentence in there that I extract something from,
Yes.
it was worth it, because where